Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and today we'll be looking at some more spoiler reveals. I have a pretty big disclaimer, in that I went through this video, started recording the video, and this new keyword of invoke, pick a celestial card from among 3 to create in hand. I had absolutely no idea what it was talking about, and so I thought it was pretty useless in me making this video. I have since done a little bit of research, a little bit of digging on Reddit to understand. We still, at this time that I'm recording this video, it's about 10 minutes past 5 here in the UK, or 10 minutes past wherever, whenever they do the reveals, so we're about 10 minutes in, have realized that the first of these celestial cards has been revealed, and we know what that is. So yeah, we're gonna go through the cards. I don't have all the information, so I won't be able to give you like solid theories on it at all, but I am very pleased because these cards and this mechanic is showing that Aurelion Sol will be the next champion, and I knew it, and I really annoyed me when people kept saying, oh, Soraka, we'll see what Soraka's going to do, oh, Soraka's going to do this, and she's going to be a healing champion, it's going to be all this, because it made no sense. Because in the Targon spoiler reveal video for the region, it was Aurelion Sol's theme music in the region, so it would make no sense if they didn't have him as the main champion that they reveal at the end. You know, it would make no sense. So it is, I'm pretty certain that it's going to be a Sol. And he's going to level up, apparently, from, you know, he's going to get freed when so many celestial cards get played or something like that, and that will be his level up. We shall see. But I would bet also that I would bet that Aurelion Sol might be 8 mana as well. And I think that because I think that they'll want to add some synergies with Trundle, because if you look at their different reveals that they've done so far, I think like Trundle is kind of just out there on his own with no real support from anything else, which is a bit weird because often with, you know, the cards that they release together, you want to have some, you know, we've got Nightfall and Daybreak, which Daybreak and Nightfall, you know, kind of synergize together already anyway. And so that's a possibility. And then what else have we got? We've had Lulu, who obviously goes very well somewhat with I always forget his name. What is his name? Tariq? The first one that was revealed. You know, they're both support champions, the whole idea of supporting things and that. So, you know, they're kind of together as well. You got Daybreak and Nightfall, and then you've just got Trundle, who was just on his own with this 8 mana stuff, Behold. And you know, just sitting there on his own. Now, we've got Invoke here. Invoke is pick a celestial card from among 3 to create in hand. It's like Discover in Hearthstone. I never really played Hearthstone, but that's what people are comparing it to. So if you have played Hearthstone, you'll know what that means, or you might do. And I will say the first celestial card that's been revealed is a 0 mana burst speed spell that reduces the cost of your cards in, or either creatures in hand, or cards in hand. Hold on. It's the cost of cards in hand, I think. It was revealed by like a Polish YouTuber, I think. So I didn't really know. But here are the cards. We're going to go through the cards. So the first one is Mountain Scry, who's the allegiance card for Targon, which is always exciting. And it is that the celestial cards cost 1 less. Now the first one that we've seen, of course, is already 0 mana, but we, you know, can assume that the others won't be. And, you know, the allegiance here is to invoke and create more cards. 4 mana 2/3 is obviously a below average stat line. I'm assuming that all these celestial cards, the one that we know of and, you know, the ones that will come up, I'm guessing will be somewhat strong abilities. And so getting a 4 mana 2/3 to invoke, and I'll base this off the fact as well, as we go through the video, there's going to be quite a few understated cards that do this. So I'm assuming, you know, reducing the cost of cards in your hand by 1 is pretty strong. And I'm going to guess that the other celestial cards have somewhat strong effects that are going to allow you to do quite a few things. So if they do all have strong effects, then this Mountain Scryer is going to be pretty good, because if, you know, you can get them to cost less as well, and they've already got a strong effect, and you know, every time you allegiance, you get a choice of these 3 cards. That's going to be pretty strong. So I imagine Mountain Scryer, you know, will be pretty strong. Again, it will depend on exactly how good the celestial cards are. If they're completely busted, then of course this card will also be completely busted. If they're strong though, which, you know, it seems to be off one card that we've got so far, probably the case, then I assume that he's going to be a very, very solid option. But I don't have all the information in knowing exactly what it is. Spacey Sketcher is a 1-mana 1/1. Discard to invoke a celestial card that costs 3 or less. So this one is interesting. So obviously you're going to get a choice of 3 cards that cost 3 or less. And you're already discarding a card to play a 1/1. And it is a play effect and not a summon effect. If this was summon, then this card would be, pretty good, because then you could obviously use it with Petty Officer and Island Navigator and get the choice of 3 cards as well, which would be really good, and probably why they made it play for that reason. And obviously you would ignore the discard. So Spacey Sketcher, a 1-mana 1/1 to get a choice to discard and get a choice of ones that cost 3 or less. We're going to have to see the ones that cost 3 or less. You would only really run this, I think, in a discard aggro deck, because I think, like, what would you be happy to discard otherwise to get one of these celestial cards that cost 3 or less? I think that this one probably has to go in that kind of archetype. I could be completely wrong though, of course. I mean, this is the thing again. All of these ones are going to be with the big disclaimer of if X celestial card is really good, then this, like, if there's one celestial card that is just amazing that costs 3 or less, and therefore by having this ability that costs 3 or less, you get to consistently choose that card, then of course this card will be really, really good. So yeah, it's going to be always somewhat dependent on that, and I don't have all the information. I don't know when we'll get all the information either, so that's why I'm just recording it now rather than waiting until we have all the information, because I figured, what if I don't know even by tomorrow, and I'm just waiting. So yeah, we could still evaluate the cards. Like, I think that Spacey Sketcher is worse than Mountain Scryer pretty strongly. Like, 4-mana 2/3 is not a good stat line for a 4-drop, absolutely. But the fact that, obviously you're only playing this in Allegiance decks, obviously. And so, if Aurelion Salt is any good, and, you got this Allegiance, and, you'll obviously probably be in a Celestial deck at that point. Mountain Scryer knows where he's going to go, and in that specific deck, he's going to give you a lot of value in that deck. Whereas Spacey Sketcher is more like a specific card and is more reliant upon having, something that you don't mind discarding and getting cards that you definitely would want over the card that you discard. So, is more limited in that sense. And this is how, we could sort of still evaluate these cards. Lunari Priestess is Nightfall Invoke, but for a 2/1, 3-drop, this is what I mean. These cards that we're invoking here, the celestial cards, are going to have to be good. And I think that this one just isn't quite it. And again, you can just compare this to the Mountain Scryer. Like, he gets the invoke here off the Allegiance, which of course you're probably in if you're playing this card anyway. So you get the invoke, but then the fact that the card that you get costs 1 less and all the others cost 1 less as well, this gives you just such good returns as the game goes on. Whereas a 2/1, to create an invoke card, like, yes, it's giving you some card advantage, and you have to get the Nightfall trigger as well. It might see playing Nightfall decks, don't get me wrong, because, having Nightfall, and there might be invoke cards that, help with Nightfall as well. So it could be interesting. But this one I'm more on the fence about, but we'll see. Then there's Solari Priestess, which is opposite, which is a 3-mana 1/2. Daybreak Invoke, a celestial card that costs 4, 5, or 6. Now, this, of course, is going to be interesting. So it's going to give you a choice. I'm not sure how many of these there will be. Where, will they all be 4-mana, 5-mana, 6-mana? We'll give you one of each. Is there like one for each drop? I don't know. It might be out there somewhere. I'm just not sure. So Daybreak Invoke, a celestial card that costs 4, 5, or 6. Now, again, it's going to depend on the strength of the 4, 5, and 6 drops for the celestial cards. But the fact that it potentially, you would expect this 4, 5, 6 to be a potential big effect card, and that might help you in the fact that, if you can get this big effect, this might be better than, say, the the Nightfall one, where you have to trigger the Nightfall, which is, you know, normally harder on a turn like turn 3 than Daybreak. You know, in Daybreak, you know, you just play on turn 3 and it's good, right? And because they have such small stat lines, you're not going to be, you know, I suppose the fact that they've got Invoke means that they do have some scalability into the late game. But in a Nightfall deck, I don't think you really want to go into the late game. Whereas what we've seen from the Daybreak cards is, you know, they're perfectly fine, like mid-range solid cards. So it makes more sense. And the fact that you know potentially what you're getting, again, if these cards are all bad at this cost, then obviously you just won't play this card. But if you know they're good, or, you know, a decent amount of options are out there, then, you know, you'll play. I could see this card being pretty decent, even though it's cards, you know, very understated. If the effect is good enough on these 4, 5, or 6, then we'll see. So next up is Moondreamer, which is a 5 mana 3/5. So still not a great stat line, but not the worst either. The fact that it's got 3 attack is okay. Like, I compare. In fact, this is a bit odd to me, because obviously a 3/5 is like a solid 4-drop stat line, but a 1/2 is like a 1 mana stat line. So you kind of traded 2 mana here for those 3 drops, whereas this one is only like 1 mana down on what it should be. Oh, sorry. And this is just play Invoke. Now it is a 5-drop, and it's not doing a lot on its own. And Invoke, you're gonna get a choice of 3 cards again. I will have to see how many cards there are and what exactly each of them do and how powerful they all are to like make a sort of mathematical based decision on whether this card is worth playing. My initial impression is that in the sort of Allegiance all-in deck, I think you might want to do it, especially if you can, you know, combine it with the Mountain Scryer and get them all to cost 1 less. And you might also play, you know, the Solari Priestess, maybe even the Spacey Sketcher, maybe even the Lunari Priestess as well. If this Mountain Scryer can go off in this all-in deck, you could potentially obviously just get absolute mega value if these cards are strong. So yeah, Mountain Scryer just looks better and better the more you think about it. And Moondreamer here could fit into the deck. As I say, the stat line is like 1 mana down as opposed to the 2 3-drops, which are like 2 mana down on the stat line. So we'll see. And the last card is Behold the Infinite, which is a 2 mana burst speed card, Invoke. Now this is one that I feel like you would want to. I mean, this one is lower down, right? Like if Invoke is crazy, then yes, you might want to play Behold the Infinite. And if there is some like Aurelion Soul like all in deck, then you know that's really good, then maybe you would play Behold the Infinite. But you're trading like a 2 mana burst speed card for like another potential card that maybe doesn't do much. I don't know. Maybe you could play it in a spell deck. Maybe, you know, you could go burst speed Invoke. Like if you're in an all-in spell deck, then that could work. Maybe even like Targon Ezreal. I don't know if you've got enough targets in Targon to make Ezreal work, but, you know, potentially in that kind of deck, you know, you can Invoke, and it's essentially like just a cycling effect. But for 2, that's the thing, like a 2 mana cycling effect, would you ever just play like 2 mana, you know, get a card? Like unless Invoke cards are all, you know, way above the average card, then I think maybe not. So this one I'm less into as a whole, and I don't think that one will be played that much. But quickly going through them, then I think obviously it's all going to depend, but the more I think about it, the more the Mountain Scryer, I'm like, okay, this card is just good, especially if these Invoke cards are also good. But just in general, in that sort of all-in deck, it just has to be like a pretty good card, right? Which might mean that you have to play Aurelion Soul in a Allegiance Targon deck. Maybe. We'll see when he comes out. I'm not going to judge him before that. And then we got Spacey Sketcher, which, could find some potential, depending on the 3 or less cost ones. But I'm not overly sold on it just yet. The fact that it's a play effect, the fact that you have to discard something as well. You know, like this one doesn't scale as well into the late game because of course you have to discard something. So, you know, think there might be better options than Spacey Sketcher. Lunari Priestess, I'm less with. Might find Nightfall decks. Maybe we'll find some use. It's gonna depend, right? Like you might play the Lunari Priestess over the Solari Priestess if the 4, 5, and 6 cost Celestial cards are all terrible. Like if all the Celestial cards that are 4, 5, and 6 are just really bad, and the Lunari Priestess can just avoid them and give you like potential, and all the other ones are really good, then you might play this one over it. It's completely possible, but we won't know probably until tomorrow, I guess. But right now, my thought, without knowing what they are, Solari Priestess is probably a little stronger. Moondreamer, I could see. Could be a little slow, but I could see it, particularly in an all-in with Mountain Scryer as well. And I could also see like Solari Priestess fitting into that deck as well. Like if you think you play Solari Priestess, let's say you get the 6 card that's, potentially good, and then you drop Mountain Scryer, and sorry about that, just my computer just sort of went off on its own. Where were we? We were talking, I think, about Solari Priestess. That if like the 6 card was good, and then you go into Mountain Scryer, and it costs 1 less, and then on turn 5 you can drop whatever that Celestial card is, assuming it's any good. That could be a nice thing. So I could see that all working together as well. And Moondreamer might fit in there, but Behold the Infinite I'm less convinced about, but we will see how strong the Invoke cards are. I'm very excited for Aurelion's Soul. Again, I know nothing about the lore, but having a cool Sky Dragon is pretty cool in it as well, and so I think that's gonna do it. In fact, let's talk about the one that we know. The one that we know is a 0 mana burst speed card that reduces the cost of all cards in your hand by 1. Now that's certainly interesting, and obviously can be used in quite a few different decks depending on how quick you can get it. Like this, in fact, just based off that 1 card alone, let's assume we go Spacey Sketcher into that one. Like, let's say we're in like a P&Z aggro deck that I suppose you want to discard cards in that P&Z aggro deck, don't you, though? So it doesn't really make much sense. So that's the thing with Spacey Sketcher. Like, if you discarded it, and discarding a card to get that one is not good, right? Yeah. But that one could hit a lot of spots. Whether you're a control or aggro player, like it's pretty. Or mid, like any deck that has cards in hand is going to be pretty happy about it. Probably obviously goes better for control and the fact that you're probably going to have more cards in hand. But yeah, that could be pretty neat, especially in like a deck that draws a lot. If you got a lot of draw effects and you just made them all cheaper so that you've got mana to play your other stuff as well, that could be pretty nice. So that 0 mana one, I'm kind of liking the idea of. So yeah, I think that's gonna end this one though. We'll find out how good Celestial cards are. Let's just hope they're completely broken so that we all have something to talk about. No, let's not. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this one though. Thank you for watching so much. Have a really nice day.